In a world where emotions are manipulated, crowds are led, and people are swept into a whirlwind of comparison, control, and conformity, the presence of a self-possessed individual is a painful reminder we can be different, we can be free. He doesn't need to stand out. He doesn't shout, doesn't wave flags, doesn't fight for the spotlight. And yet, simply by existing with calm, clarity, and independence, he makes the entire system uneasy. Modern society is built on consensus about what's right, what's wrong, what counts as success, and what deserves ridicule. And anyone who doesn't obey, who refuses to submit to those definitions, is labeled as deviant, dangerous. But he isn't rebelling. He isn't breaking the rules. He's just refusing to be led. He doesn't respond the way the system expects. He isn't guided by praise, controlled by criticism, or fueled by the need for approval. That's why society fears him. In this video, we'll explore the nature of the man who can't be ruled, the one who lives outside the web of control, not because he's against everything, but because he has mastered himself. And once you begin to master yourself, you no longer belong to any system at all. The path to self-sovereign type. Picture this. The world is a storm of chaos. Headlines scream, scandals erupt, trends flare up, and a single tweet can ignite a wildfire of reactions. The crowd is a roaring beast, desperate for a leader to follow, a villain to condemn, or a cause to make them feel righteous. One voice rises with a bold opinion, and thousands flock to it like moths to a flame. Another stumbles, gets canceled, and thousands vanish into the digital void, as if they never existed. The noise is deafening scrolls of outrage, memes, of mockery, and endless debates that go nowhere. It's a circus, and everyone's playing their part, whether they know it or not. But amidst this cacophony, there's one figure who stands apart. He's not shouting to be heard. He's not performing for likes or bracing for backlash. He's not even arguing. He's simply standing still, not frozen in fear, but awake, aware, and unshakably present. There's a quiet power in his stillness, a strength that doesn't need to scream to be felt, because real power isn't loud. It's not reactive. It's not about controlling others or bending them to your will. It's about refusing to let them control you. This refusal is where true freedom begins. You don't need to scream at the system to defy it. You don't need to burn it all down to escape it. You just need to stop playing the role it handed you. Stop chasing the likes. Stop begging to be seen. Stop flinching when the crowd disapproves. When you do that, something remarkable happens. You step out of the game. You're no longer a pawn on their board, scrambling to keep up. You're above it, watching the chaos unfold with clear eyes, untangled from its grip. When you stop reacting the way they expect, you become unpredictable. And when you're unpredictable, you become ungovernable. This is what terrifies every system built on obedience, every institution that thrives on your fear, every culture that demands your compliance, every algorithm that nudges you toward conformity. A person who governs their own emotions, who doesn't crave validation, who pauses before acting. This person is a threat, not because they're loud or destructive, but because they've done the one thing society never taught them to do. They've taken back control of their mind, their choices, their very self. That's the seed of true freedom. The invisible chains of reflexity. You don't need physical chains to be enslaved anymore. The modern world doesn't rule with iron shackles. It rolls with your reflexes. Society doesn't govern you through force, it governs you through your patterns. It doesn't care what you believe, as long as it can predict how you'll react. That's the trick. You're not being coerced at gunpoint. You're being programmed, trained to want what they tell you to want, to fear what they tell you to fear, to follow the herd because standing alone feels like a risk too great to bear. Think about it. You scroll through your feed and an ad flashes a sleek car, a perfect body, a dream vacation. Suddenly, you feel a pang of lack, a whisper that you're not enough. Someone posts a snarky comment, and your stomach twists with shame or anger. A trend surges, new slang, new fashion, new outrage, and you feel the pressure to keep up, to not be left behind. These aren't choices, they're responses, automatic and unconscious, wired into you by a world that knows exactly how to pull your strings. Carl Jung's words cut through the fog. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Let that sink in. The system doesn't need to hold you down. It just needs to keep you on autopilot, reacting predictably while you convince yourself you're free. You think you're chasing your dreams, but too often, those dreams were sold to you. You think you're seeking meaning, What is someone else's definition, packaged and delivered through a screen? The world hands you a script, rewards you for following it, and punishes you for stepping off the page. As long as your desires go unexamined, as long as your fears lurk in the shadows of your mind, you're not acting, you're being acted upon. You're a marionette, dancing to strings you don't even see. But the moment you pause, the moment you observe the reflex instead of obeying it, the world shifts. You break the pattern. You step off the treadmill. You reclaim the one thing the system can never give you, awareness, and from awareness flows choice. From choice flows power, not the power to dominate others, but the power to master yourself. The example of Epictetus. Consider Epictetus, a man born into slavery in ancient Rome. His life was owned by another, no property, no status, no power in the way society measures it. Yet, despite his chains, he became one of history's freest souls. How? He understood a truth we've forgotten. Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Those words aren't just philosophy. They're a blueprint for living. Today, we've twisted the meaning of freedom. We think it's permission, the right to say anything, buy anything, be anything. But that's not freedom. It's a trap. If every insult sways your mood, you don't own your emotions. If every notification steals your focus, you don't own your time. If every fear whispers in your ear and you obey, you don't own your choices. Real freedom isn't about doing whatever you want. It's about being free from being led by every want that pops into your head. Epictetus knew this. Freedom isn't about reshaping the world around you. It's about mastering the world within you. It's about asking, what is truly mine? What thoughts, what fears, what desires belong to me? And what have I inherited from a culture that profits from my compliance? Do you get angry because you've been genuinely wronged, or because you've been conditioned to react to provocation? Do you fear rejection because you're truly alone, or because you dread facing the quiet void within when no one's watching? Breaking the invisible script. Most people drift through life, reacting to ghost reflexes installed by a system that never asked for their consent. A coworker's slight sets you off, not because it matters, but because you've been taught to. Take it personally. A news alert sparks panic, not because the world is ending, but because fear sells clicks. A friend's perfect Instagram post makes you feel small, not because you're lacking, but because the system thrives on your insecurity. But the moment you start questioning, is this thought mine? Is this belief mine? Is this fear mine? The chains begin to loosen. You're no longer just reacting, you're investigating. You're no longer a puppet. You're pulling back the curtain to see who's holding the strings. And when you question what controls you, you start becoming someone who can't be controlled. This is the essence of freedom, not permission to act, not power over others, but clarity. A clarity so deep that no one can give it to you, and no one can take it away. The greatest lie of modern power is that it lives outside you, that some leader, government, or corporation holds the reins. But the truth is harsher and more liberating. No one needs to control you from the outside if they've already trained you to control yourself on their terms. If you can't govern your cravings, you'll buy whatever promises to soothe them: a new gadget, a new look, a new lifestyle. If you can't regulate your emotions, you'll believe anyone who offers hope or stokes your fear: a politician, a pundit, a preacher. If you don't know who you are, you'll adopt whatever identity the culture hands you just to feel like you belong. And the system knows this. It's not an accident. It's a design. Politics doesn't need to be honest. It just needs to scare you into voting for safety over sovereignty. Marketing doesn't care about your growth. It just needs you to feel incomplete, so you'll buy to fill the void. Pop culture doesn't need truth. It just needs you to dance to its tune. So anyone who steps out of rhythm feels like a threat. External control is an illusion. The real control lies in your habits, your impulses, your unexamined responses. It's not about force, it's about frequency. Repeat a pattern long enough, and you'll mistake it for your own nature. The power of the pause. Here's the secret. A system built on reflex only works when you don't see it. The moment you pause and ask, why am I doing this? Who benefits from my reaction? The illusion starts to crack. The control loop becomes visible, and what's visible can be broken. You don't need to flee the world to be free. You just need to escape the version of yourself the world trained you to be. This isn't about rebellion, it's about responsibility. Not about tearing down the system, but about reprogramming the one thing it relies on: you. Carl Jung's warning rings true: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Most people don't. choose their actions. They react, driven by buried fears, unresolved shame, or beliefs they never question. They aren't forced, they're triggered. And the most uncomfortable truth, you don't need to be evil to be dangerous. You just need to be unaware, blind to the forces inside you pulling strings you think are yours. The system doesn't care if you protest or post your outrage online. It doesn't care if you rebel, as long as you never stop to ask, am I doing this because I want to, or because I'm afraid not to? Do I believe this? Or am I scared of what happens if I don't? Whose values am I living by? Unasked questions keep you programmable, but the moment you start observing, creating space between the trigger and the reaction, you begin to unravel the script. You make room for choice, for clarity, for sovereignty. That's where real power is born, not in controlling others, but in becoming immune to their control. The person who sees their own shadows, who names their fears, who owns their inner chaos can't be hijacked by someone else's agenda. They're calm in conflict, steady in chaos, free in a world of invisible cages. You don't become powerful by accumulating more status, more stuff, more followers. You become powerful by uncovering what's already there and clearing out what never belonged to you. The 4 pillars of self-rulesso. What does it mean to be self-ruled? Not as an abstract idea, but as a daily practice. It's not about rebellion or grand gestures. It's about presence, about owning the world within you. This mastery unfolds in 4 domains, each a pillar of sovereignty. 1. Emotion, the art of composure. Most people react before they feel. A harsh word, and they snap. A slight, and they retreat. A challenge, and they lash out, not because they thought, but because they haven't. Their emotions are a reflex, not a choice. The self-ruled person doesn't suppress their feelings. They observe them. They pause, process, and respond with intention, not instinct. Imagine someone cuts you off in traffic. The reflex is to honk, curse, or fume. But what if you paused, took a breath, and asked, why does this bother me? Is this worth my peace? That pause is power. It's not coldness, it's composure, the ability to feel deeply without being ruled by it. Some thought, owning your men. If your beliefs are inherited from family, culture, or media, then your thoughts are rented, and anything rented can be taken away. The self-ruled mind doesn't swallow conclusions whole. It questions them, it tests them, it builds beliefs based on truth, not tradition. Consider the last time you argued about politics or religion. Were you defending your own reasoning or stance you absorbed without scrutiny? If you don't know where your thoughts come from, someone else does. A sovereign mind is a curious one, always asking, is this true? Does this serve me? Or is it just what I've been taught to think? 3. Morality, crafting your code. Most people follow a moral script they didn't write. They act good to fit in, not because it's right, but because it's expected. The sovereign builds their own code, grounded in reason, reflection, and experience. They do what's right even when it's inconvenient, even when no one's watching. Imagine refusing to gossip, not because it's wrong by someone else's rule book, but because you've decided it doesn't align with your integrity. That's sovereign living by your own compass, not the crowd's. 4. Desire, knowing what to know. We're bombarded with messages to want more money, more status, more attention. But the self-ruled person knows the difference between craving and calling. They don't chase to feel whole. They act from a place of wholeness. They know what's enough. Picture someone offered a high-paying job that clashes with their values. The reflex is to take it: security, prestige, validation. But the sovereign pauses and asks, is this what I truly want, or what I've been told to want? That clarity makes them untouchable, because no shiny promise can sway them from their path. When you master these 4 domains: emotion, thought, morality, and desire, you don't need to shout to prove you're free. You're no longer pushed or pulled by the world's whims. You stand rooted in yourself, and that is the rarest, most potent form of power. The cost of sovereign self-rule isn't free. It comes with a price you talk about. You won't be celebrated for thinking for yourself. You'll be called difficult, aloof, arrogant, or even unambitious. Not because you are, but because you've stopped playing by rules others never questioned. You'll stop craving what they crave, and that makes them uneasy. You'll stop reacting as they react, and that makes them suspicious. Relationships will shift. Some will fade quietly, not with drama, but with distance, because some people weren't there for you. They were there for the version of you that needed them when that version dissolves. So does the bond. You'll be accused of changing, of pulling away, of being too much or too little. But what's really happening? You're coming home to yourself, and not everyone will have the courage to follow you there. You'll find yourself outside the tribes. No box will fit, no label will stick. The more you belong to yourself, the less you'll belong to the groups that wants to find you. But here's the trade-off. No one holds the reins to your life anymore. No ideology, no authority, no person gets to press your buttons and expect a reaction. No one gets to dangle approval and demand obedience. No one gets to define your worth. Because you've stopped outsourcing it. In that quiet exile, you discover sovereignty. You're not performing for the crowd. You're not chasing their applause. You're not molding yourself to be more palatable. You are fully, unapologetically yours. That self-possession terrifies those who rely on the crowd to know who they are. But to you, it's peace, the peace of no longer needing the world's permission to exist. The paradox of power here is the great paradox. The person who doesn't chase power becomes the one others trust with it. The one who doesn't beg to be heard becomes the one people listen to. The less you need from the world, the more it responds. To you, there's a magnetism to someone who's whole, not polished, not perfect, but unshakably themselves. They don't need to dominate. They've mastered themselves. They don't need to prove anything. They've accepted everything. They don't seek approval. So when they speak, it's not noise, it's signal. People feel this. When you don't fear being misunderstood, your words carry clarity. When you don't crave acceptance, you radiate presence. When you don't flinch at rejection, you become impossible to threaten. You're not here to impress society. You're here to understand what it means to be human fully, honestly, undeniably. That's why those who lead themselves often become leaders to others, not because they seek to lead, but because they show what's possible. They're proof you don't have to be reactive, owned, or fake to be loved. The person who rules themselves no longer needs to be ruled, and that quiet, unshakable power is the rarest of all, not the kind you seize, but the kind you become. The world's need for sovereign souls. The world doesn't need more followers blindly obeying the script. It doesn't need more performers chasing applause or rebels raging against the machine just to stay in the spotlight. What it needs is sovereign individuals, people so rooted in themselves that no culture, no system, no past version of themselves can govern them without consent. These are the people who question, who reflect, who walk away from the noise to hear something deeper. You don't need to change the world to change your life. You just need to reclaim what the world convinced you to surrender: your attention, your beliefs, your voice, your center. So ask yourself, what drives you that feels like you, but isn't truly yours? Is it fear, a need to belong, an identity that keeps you safe but small? Are you living a life you've chosen or one you've inherited? There's a difference between surviving in the system and awakening within yourself. Once you awaken, once you see clearly, there's no going back. The same promises can't lure you. The same pressures can't bully you. The same ghosts can't haunt you. You see the strings and you've stopped dancing. The person who can't be ruled doesn't overthrow power. They simply stop giving. There's a way. That's the quiet truth. The one who cannot be ruled has learned to rule themselves. And that's how you become untouchable, not by escaping the world, but by belonging, at last, to yourself. What did you think about today's video? Feel free to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Thank you for watching. If this video opened your mind or helped you see reality in a new light, don't forget to like and subscribe to Top Hidden Knowledge so you never miss our next deep dive into mystery, perception, and the hidden workings of our universe. And if you have time, explore more videos on our channel. We're just getting started. Until next time, stay curious, stay aware, and never stop questioning the world around you.